This is the plaintiff, Michelle Smith. She says she dated the defendant for a month, and he led her to believe they had a future together. Unfortunately, he's one of those sweetheart swindler types. He won't pay her back the money she loaned him, and she's suing him for the $7,885.05 she's owed. This is the defendant, Joseph Anders. He says the plaintiff joined him on a cross-country trip because he's a long-haul truck driver and likes to have some company. She left him mid-trip. He didn't borrow any money from her, and he'll be happy when this woman's out of his life for good after this trial. He's accused of trucking up a relationship.
All parties, please raise your right hand. People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Leon's not presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Smith, what happened here?
Hi, I'm Judge Million. I met the defendant and we started dating. And
How did you two meet?
We met on Facebook.
Okay.
And we ended up I went with him for a week back at the end of May on his truck, and we had a really good time, you know.
When you say his truck, he's a trucker?
Semi, yeah.
Okay. All right, so you went with him on one of his trips?
Yes, in the end of May, I went for 1 week.
Okay.
And everything was fine, you know, or so I thought. That end of October, we were supposed to go to Florida, and he needed me to wire $500 to him because he had some expenses that he needed to take care of, and he was actually planning on coming here, which would have been the 10th of June.
Here would be where?
In Indiana is where I'm at.
When did you loan him the $500?
It was the 6th of June.
Okay. And when do you take the fateful trip that we'll talk about?
June the 10th of this year.
Okay.
That was supposed to be for 3 weeks, and it ended up to be like 2 days.
Why? What happened?
Well, I found out this time he had a temper, and he was mad at me because I was in the front passenger seat and I fell asleep. I hadn't had much sleep. And so he started just yelling at me. He wanted me to get in the back of the sleeper and sleep. But before that, on the trip before,
what was he mad at? What was he yelling? What was he saying when he was yelling?
He was just telling me to get in the back and go to sleep because I kept dozing off.
Okay.
And apparently that was something that he doesn't like.
Right.
And so he before told me he didn't want me back in the sleeper part because there was no airbags or seat belts and I wouldn't be safe.
Okay. So he tells you to go back to the sleeper part. And all right. And so what else happens?
Well, I get back there and I fell asleep for 4 hours. And when I woke up, he was completely lost his temper. I don't know if it was because I slept too long or what the case may be. So I just stayed back in the sleeper.
No.
I was
lost his temper is a conclusion on your part. I need to know factually, what did he do?
Oh, he screamed. He was screaming at me.
What was he saying?
Anything that he was, I don't even know. I was terrified.
Well, I know, but I want to feel terrified with you, but you're making it hard because you won't tell me what he said that terrified you. So what actually was he saying?
He was yelling at me that I slept too long. He was yelling at me that, you know, I didn't get him something to drink as soon as I woke up. He had just lost his temper. Half the stuff he was saying didn't even make sense.
Okay.
But while he was yelling and cursing at me, he was taking anything he could grab and crushing it with one hand and throwing it out the window. He broke a stainless steel fork in half, threw it out the window, and, you know, just anything he could get his hands on. And so I stayed back in the sleeper area because I was terrified. I was all these miles away from home and I was terrified. And I told him I was done. I do not deserve to be talked to like that. And I didn't deserve everything, but I'm sorry, Your Honor, if I could back up just to the night before, because this was the real terror part.
Okay.
It's pitch dark outside and we're driving through, I don't know if we're in Nebraska or where, but all I know, it was just desolate. There was no lights anywhere. And during this ranting and raving, he pulls over to the side of the road. And that's when I had told him I was done. And he said, fine, you're done. He said, then you need to get your out of my refrigerator. And I had several protein drinks in there, and they're like 11-ounce cardboard. And so he opened the door and started throwing those at me. I mean, as hard as he could. And I'm sitting back there ducking, trying to miss being hit by him. And so then when we fast forward, when we stopped at the Love's truck stop, he needed to fuel, and I needed to get out and go to the bathroom. And when I told him I wanted to get out of the truck, he went to shut my phone off so that I would have no contact with anybody. So I contacted my sister right away.
How would turning your phone off stop you from contacting somebody? As soon as you walk away, you just turn it back on.
I can't. It was under his plans.
Oh, you mean actually shut your phone off? You mean like turn the service off through the company?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so go on.
And by this time, I don't know what I'm going to do because...
Well, you're at a truck stop. Do you tell somebody, call the police?
Well, he had called my sister begging her to talk to me because he wanted to be with me and he didn't want it to end that way. And so I had this like overwhelming feeling tell me, because he was occupied talking to my sister. I apologize. I snuck out of the truck before he even knew what was going on. And so he was on the phone with my sister and said, well, never mind, she's getting out of the truck. So I had been sitting back there gathering everything I could, especially the protein drinks, because I hadn't eaten in 2 days because I was so traumatized and afraid.
What are you suing for, Ms. Smith? Tell me what you're suing for.
Well, I'm suing for the money that I wired him.
The $500?
Yes. And then I have a Bluetooth speaker that I took on the truck.
Okay.
And I have several messages where he keeps telling me he's going to send it to me. He's going to send it to me.
Okay. I understand those two things. What else are you suing for?
The plane ticket that my mother loaned me the money to buy so I could get home.
He told you he'd take you home. You didn't want to, you thought he was acting this way, and you didn't want to be in that truck anymore. So you ended up having to get a plane ticket to go home. Go on.
Yes, because I was just so terrified. And then the rest of, I have listed like the charges that I made on my card after. Pardon me?
Snacks, groceries.
Yeah.
Snacks that were eaten along the trip. You're suing for half of the snacks?
Yes, the reason I was suing for half is because he told me, and he also told my sister, that he was taking care of everything.
Mr. Anders, let me talk to you. How long had you two been dating before this fateful trip?
About a month.
Okay, what happened on the trip?
I had a bad day, and then her falling asleep because she's not taking her meds like she was supposed to, magnesium pills and stuff, and she offered to buy the food for the truck for the trip.
Okay, why were you mad that she fell asleep?
Because she fell asleep in the front seat on a previous trip for not taking her magnesium pills, and I figured that's what was going on again. So I told her to go in the back to lay down back there and get some sleep.
She says you were throwing her protein shakes at her.
I threw them in the back of the sleeper.
Is that at her?
Well, she was sitting right in the middle. In the bunk.
Okay.
I threw him back.
Okay. So were you acting violently?
I had my temper.
Okay.
But I never laid hands on her.
Were you breaking metal forks and throwing them out the windows, crushing stuff and throwing it out the window in anger?
My stuff, my property, not hers.
You were just littering with your own property, not with her property?
Yep.
All right. So at what point do you call the sister?
When at the truck stop to let her know she was getting out of the truck at the Love's truck stop in Wamsata, Wyoming.
Okay, and what happens?
I offered to get her home, but she didn't want to be in the truck. She wanted to go.
Right. Are we wondering why she didn't want to be in the truck?
I know.
Okay.
Because of my temper.
All right. So you acknowledge that you owe her the $500 that she wired, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you acknowledge that you owe her the Bluetooth speaker.
Yes, ma'am.
What about all these snacks and groceries and the time she helped with gas, I guess, or whatever, all these other little charges that she's suing you about?
Well, I figured she's going to be on the truck. She's bought food. I thought it was for both of us, not just for her.
Yeah, but she claims that you're supposed to pay her back for that. Were you ever supposed to pay her back for that?
I didn't hear nothing about it. I know about the $500. I don't have a problem with that, but all this.
Well, $6,600 of this, she wants you to pay her in pain and suffering because you were yelling at her and through the protein shakes. And so, what's your response on $6,600 for that she's suing you for?
I don't see where I should have to pay that.
Okay. What about the airline ticket, which happened because you were acting erratically, and you yourself admit that you were acting erratically, and she didn't feel safe with you there? Do you think you should have to pay the airline ticket?
If I have to, I will.
Yeah, I kind of think you do. Ms. Smith, did you ever give him an address to send the Bluetooth speaker to?
Yes, Your Honor. I actually texted that to him, and I do have copies of that.
And he still didn't send it. All right. And at some point, were you communicating with his ex or no?
No, it was to his new girlfriend.
Oh, what'd you do?
I sent her a message. I sent her a Facebook message just warning her because I didn't want anybody else to go through what I did.
And what did she say to you?
She didn't say anything. And then a month later, they both attacked me, him via text message and her via Facebook Messenger.
How did they attack?
They told me, that I needed to quit sending messages and this and that, and I hadn't sent.
How is that attacking you? How is that attacking you?
Because I didn't send him. I didn't send him till the beginning of July, and his girlfriend said some, awful things.
What did she say?
I was harassed. She just told me that I needed to get over it, and towards the end, she said, "You're just proving everything he said was right. You're just a crazy," and just letting me have it when all I was. Okay, but
how about you not contact his girlfriend to tell her she could break? See, I have a little bit of a problem. I'm listening to your testimony for a long time now. You're weeping as though you're the victim of the worst crimes imaginable. And when we distill it to its essence, the guy has a bad temper and he's a jerk and you shouldn't date him.
But we skipped over the part that was so traumatizing.
Oh, we did? Okay. What was that?
When he lost his temper, he pulled over to the side of the road in the middle of nowhere and told me to get out of the truck. Right. And when I wouldn't get out of the truck because I wouldn't have survived, he swerves over to the left and just starts barreling over orange barrels. I can't even go out because semis just trigger everything. Orange barrels trigger everything. I was terrified. Okay. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a bad time. I agree with you. He stalked me, Your Honor, as well.
How did he stalk you?
He
called
found
his,
out what
you reached his girlfriend to tell her she should break up with him and to trash talk him. How did he stalk you?
No, I didn't trash. I told her.
Tell me how he stalked you.
What he did to me that the day that I got out of the truck, because I knew I wasn't safe, a church set me up for a motel room.
How did he stalk you? Was my question.
He was sending me message after message after message, trying to call me. I didn't answer, even talks about me ignoring him. Then he says to me that he knows what town I'm in. And then the next thing you know, he says, "I know what room you're in."
Okay.
And so he knew where I was, and I was petrified.
Okay, did he come to your room?
No, but
because all those phone calls were about apologizing and trying to get you to calm down and get back in the car and apologizing for his conduct. That's what those phone calls were, right?
No, these were after I was at the motel. I mean, message after message and going back and forth. I love you. I want to be with you.
That's what I just said. And then, right. They weren't, "I'm going to kill you." They were like apologetic, whatever. They were unwanted, but that's not what stalking is. That's called the breakup. That's what that is. Let me ask you a question. After he, because this is one of the things that I thought was a little strange when you say, I went back to the truck and slept. When I woke up, it was still daylight. I wasn't sure where we were. All I saw were mountains and snow on top. The defendant lost his temper again and screamed at the top of his lungs because I slept too long. The defendant then took a fork, broke it in half, and threw it out the window, along with other things such as cigarettes, anything he could get his hands on. When it got pitch dark outside, he pulled over to the side of the road, told me to get out. I knew I would not be able to survive. And when I refused to get out of the truck, he hit the accelerator, swerved to the left, and hit about 30 orange barrels on the road. I just screamed. I was so terrified, I started crying. Then you say, we drove through Nebraska, made a stop at Pilot's truck stop. I used the restroom, bought drinks and snacks for us on my MasterCard, which cost $18.14. You didn't call the police. You got back in the truck and you bought snacks, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't later until that night.
Yeah, right.
That
so
night when
after everything you've described that was so horrible with the hitting, throwing things out the window and hitting those orange things, you stop at a truck stop and you can literally tell someone, call the police right now, but instead you spend $18.14 on snacks, which you are asking me to make him pay you $9 and something of. See, I have to make an assessment in court whether this is just how you roll. These are the kind of people you date.
No.
This is how you spend your life. And, it wasn't all that traumatizing for you. And I also have to make a decision what that trauma you went through is worth. If it's not worth you calling the cops in your next truck stop, if it's worth you buying more snacks and then suing him for half of those snacks, then I get a flavor of what it's worth. You don't strike me as someone who's truly afraid of him if you're sitting around calling his girlfriend and telling her she should break up with him and suing for snacks. This doesn't sound to me like, this is like your boyfriend. You thought you had a future with him, and it turns out you didn't know him very well, right? You didn't know him very well when you thought you had a future after 1 month of dating him. So I am ordering him to pay you back the $500. I am ordering him to pay you back the cost of the airline ticket and the checked baggage fee. And I am ordering him to pay you what the cost is of the Bluetooth speaker, according to you. So I am ordering him to pay you $946.68, not $8,000. I don't find that what you've told me is something that should entitle you to $6,600 in emotional distress. And I do find in your favor, but in the amount of the $946.68.
Well, there's no way the plaintiff was going to get emotional distress damages here. But if it's appropriate for the judge to award emotional distress, you can only get it when that emotional distress is extreme.
Whatever happened to the bailiff Rusty from Judge Wapner's era?
Rusty, after the first iteration of the People's Court sunsetted back in the early 90s, became the bailiff in Animal Court.
Animal Court.
With Judge Wapner,
right?
Yeah.
I think that's about right. And then he, I don't know where he's from.
He passed away.
Guy, I guess, right?
He passed away. I know he passed away when he was around 76.
Well, he was the original bailiff on the show, right? And, interesting fact about Rusty. He was the presiding bailiff during the Charles Manson trials.
That had to be interesting.
In California. Imagine that. I mean, I can't imagine it's any more dramatic than what you do day to day. Okay. But
maybe.
Maybe a tiny bit. But may he rest in peace.